Hi, welcome to Crafted Sweetly. I'm Diana. Thanks so much for being here as usual. If you've been a long-time subscriber, thank you first of all. But if you've been a long-time subscriber, you know that in my book folding patterns, the book folding tutorials, the ones that require a cut and fold, I've been using an Incra ruler, which I love. It's very accurate, and this is what I've been doing for pretty much since I've started doing book folding. In this tutorial, I want to show you the option of the graph cut and fold. So if you don't feel comfortable using an Incra ruler, if you can't afford one, if it's hard to see even with the little holes, which make it accurate, but it's hard for you to kind of find the holes, this graph pattern tutorial or the graph pattern option is a great way to still be able to do book folding and not have to get an Incra ruler. So I created the pattern. We'll start off with kind of a little more background here with it. I created the pattern using Wonderfold, which I have a tutorial for that as well, as far as the program, the software. And you'll notice with this, it's instead of having the table with the pages in vertical format that have all the measurements for each page, the pattern is actually kind of designed out per page. So this is the page number, and I chose to have the page numbers at the top so that this is how it's going to be in the book, because I always work from this direction, but you can have it the other way. And it's 4 pages. This is a shorter book. It's 279 pages, and I've already started 1, so that's not here, and then 2, 3, and then this. So it's a pretty quick project. It has 1,500 cuts roughly in the book and 280 pages for the design. And this is the design that I'm doing. It's a rose. It's simple. I wanted to show you the process if you choose to do a graph design. The other thing that I want to mention is that you can do this where you're just taking the pages of the book and cutting along and then folding. I chose to do a 180 with it. I think it gives a cleaner look to the page. So I'll do that first with my book before I do anything else. And to do the 180 fold, I'm using my 180 guide. And I've started this actually in another book, but I want to show you a tip that a viewer suggested, which is absolutely amazing as far as being able to fold. Now, if you've used the 180 fold, I used to put like tiles underneath the last pages to be able to accommodate this lip to the 180 guide. And I do have the 180 guide and wider if you choose to do this. So it's got additional slots for it. So I'll use this one. It has a little like 90-degree angle right there, which hooks onto the pages. But the last few pages tend to get a little trickier. So for that, I'll show you what I do. Now, to score the pages for the 180, I will do the entire book. I used to do kind of in stages. I'll do the 180 fold, mark them, and do this. But with this technique, we really want to do the 180, not the fold itself, but scoring them for the entire book. So initially, like I said, it's, you want to make sure that this here is 90 degrees because otherwise the book is slanted. And for this design, I scored against this slat and against this slat. So it has 2 different score lines because when I fold in, I want to be able to fold in to 2 different depths. So I have this fold right here. And then once I do the cutting, I have one more fold, which you can kind of see right there. So those are the 2 folds. And I do this for the entire book. Now, like I said, once you get towards the end of the book, this makes it a little harder. So this particular design or this particular technique, tip, whatever you want to call it, that the viewer suggested, which I absolutely love, is taking the book once you get, maybe 3/4 of the way where you don't feel, whoops, lost it. 180 guide here. Once you get to the towards the end and it's harder to keep the spine squared off, then you flip the book. So now it's like starting over, and it's the same thing. You're just going to score the book against this and against this. So you want to be sure that you keep your scoring tool, and I'm using this embossing kind of tool. It comes in a set with different thicknesses of heads, and I don't use the skinniest one because I don't want to rip through the page, and I don't use the thickest one either, because then it makes too thick of a dent in it. So I'll score the back side of the book the other way, and you know, if you've done it 3/4 of the way, then you don't have that much left to do on this side, but then that will keep your pages squared off very nicely. Okay, so that's my tip with this. And I scored the entire book, not fold the 180, but just score it. So this was just a sample book to show you, since I've already scored the book that I'm already working on, and I wanted to show you how to do the scoring from beginning to end. So I've already done some of the pages right there. Okay, now to show you the marking process. What I've done is I've taken one of these pages and I attached the page to a mat along with a ruler on the side here. Now the ruler itself, you want it to be completely flush with the top of these lines. Okay, now you're covering these numbers up, which really doesn't matter because more than likely they will not correspond to the pages in your book. You just need to make sure that you're crossing them off as you go. So I've got the self-healing mat, I've got the pattern down, and these I already did. So I'm folding the page in half, because if this was open, it would be hard to kind of get all the way in with this. So I'm folding this in half. And then I will put the ruler down on here, or you know, whatever straight edge you have. And again, this has to be right along the edges, the top of the lines. And then I will secure this down. I'm gonna make sure it doesn't move in the process. So this is down here. Let me move this pattern out of the way because I'm working on this page still. So I want to clip it without moving it. Right there. And then one more clip. Again, top of the line. And I'm clipping it. Okay, so now I've got the self-healing mat with the pattern on it clipped to the edge. Why did I do this? Is because I want this page to be always, let me move this over a little bit, still see, this is going to always be your straight edge, like against this here. Okay, and then this, I already scored this, and I have 2 score lines, so I did the entire book as I mentioned. And I'm folding this over for the 180, and this is where I'm going to mark the pattern. If you're not doing a 180, then you technically would be marking the page right here, not scoring, but marking the page. There's no scoring involved if you're not doing a 180. But again, I think a 180 will give you a cleaner look, and it also can give you the option of adding color with cardstock if you choose to, which I have videos, tons of videos on that as well. Alright, so I left off over here, that's done. Now the next page that I want to do is here. So what I do is, this is flush against my guide, and that's the page I'm on. Now the edge of the page is gonna go right along the line that goes this way. Okay, so I'm kind of forming off a square, lining up the top of the page against this, and then this edge of the page, whether it's a 180 or straight, against the line that's on the pattern. And now all you're doing is marking the page right where these guides, where the pattern shows you to. So you don't have to measure anything, you're just marking off this. You're putting little tick marks basically where the pattern tells you to do it. The only reason this is different colors, as far as I can tell, I don't think there's any other intention except to kind of make it easier to read the pattern with alternating colors. Otherwise, the color doesn't mean anything. Okay, and that's all it took to mark this page. And now you cross it off. Right there. I did that line, just so I don't do it again. And you can kind of move this out of the way a little bit and do one more page. So I need to fold the 180. Whoops. On here. And then I'm marking it flush against here, lined up along the line in the pattern. And same thing, you're just gonna, whoops, put little tick marks, which we'll use as our cutting points once everything is marked. You can probably do like 4 or 5 pages if you do a 180. If you choose not to do a 180, you could technically mark the entire book and then go back and cut it. But with the 180, this is going to bulk it up, which means it's going to be harder to go back and then cut and fold the places. So I would recommend doing, 5 pages at most, 2 to 5 pages, and then cutting and then moving on, repeating the process. Okay, so I have these. Now, I'm excited to tell you, kind of announcing it here, that soon I'll have one more tool added to the collection of book folding tools that will help with cutting these straight. Now, I know I've seen some comments in Facebook groups that people have a hard time keeping this straight here. So stay tuned. Join my Facebook group, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already done so. Pretty soon I'll be doing a video showing you that tool as far as how to use it to make sure that these lines are straight for you, if you have a hard time keeping these cuts straight. So stay tuned for that. Pretty soon. It's in the R&D department at the moment. Now, as far as cutting this back, how deep you want to cut it, it doesn't matter if you cut right to the edge of this fold or deeper in. And the reason it doesn't matter is because I have a second score line, if you remember, that I'm folding back to. So it doesn't matter if the cut goes farther in. I mean, I don't want to go all the way to the middle of the page, but it doesn't matter if I'm going a little past, much past this edge, because you're not going to be able to tell once I fold it. So as far as folding this, I'm going to the second score line here. So you can see that it's not all the way to the edge. And that second score line will keep everything even for the second layer, or the deep part into the pattern. And I'll show you how far I've gotten with it once I fold this page back. If you have really tiny cuts, you can use tweezers to kind of get this folded back properly if you need to. That's an option, certainly. I'm using the tip of my scissors here to kind of get everything back to that second score line. Okay, so there's my second score line for the page, and everything is moved back to there. Okay, I've completed 3 out of the 5 pages, and on the last page there are only a couple of lines left, so I thought I would show you page 4. So what I'm doing is I am going to draw a line here to make it easier if it shifts, and I'm drawing this right at the edge of all these of the lines that I have, the horizontal lines. So let's do this. Right at the edge, and the reason you want to do that, you want to make sure that this ruler stays right at the edge when you're putting it on. So this is right at the edge of the horizontal lines. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna trim this off, and I'll show you in a second why. So I'm gonna take this off. The numbers are still kind of there, it doesn't really matter. And now I want to attach this. So I'm attaching the graph pattern to a self-healing map. You can use a little bigger one. This is an, what is it, 6x8 one. You can use a slightly larger one if you'd like. And halfway through this, I will have to fold it this way in order to be able to get it into the book, because my book is not this deep. So what I'll do is I'll use this as a guide here, this line, to make sure that's straight. Set this down. Whoops, let me go farther in. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to put the ruler right here, right along the line that I just drew. And then this needs to be clipped down. Okay, so now I have my board that I'm using to mark the pages. Now let me show you how far I've gotten into the book. There you go. So a beautiful rose forming with the cuts, and I did not use a ruler for them. I'll do one more page just so you can see again what I'm doing. So this I'll hold in there. All these pages are already scored. I showed you at the beginning of the video scoring everything, the entire book. And you can see right there the two score lines. So I'm folding this along the first score line right there, and then this goes in here. Make sure the page is against the ruler, and the edge of this page is on your first pattern line on this page. So right there. Okay, kind of forming a squared off a corner here. And I'm marking this off like this, so I know I'm doing this line already. That way I don't forget where I'm at. And then just drawing the lines right along where the bars are on your pattern. What I found that is easy to make sure that these tabs stay in place as I'm placing it underneath the rod for my book fold is I'm kind of pushing from here, and that's helping guide, you know, press down even more. And at that point I'm stopping with the page right underneath this first rod. So the stand does have two sets of arms. If you've purchased the stand from me previously and you only have one set of arms, I do have the arms available in my Etsy shop, just the individual arms. You would have to drill another hole in the stand if you got it prior to, I guess, maybe a couple months ago, 3 months ago. I can't remember when I switched over to doing two arms availability. So you would have to drill another set, but you can purchase an additional set of arms only. All right, so I let it sit there while I'm doing the next page. That helps kind of secure everything in place, and then things will not kind of pop out or anything. And then I move on to the next page. I've completed the book, and again with the graph pattern, you can see all my markings here on the lines as I was progressing through the pattern. So I took this, and pretty much the same as using a ruler, using the Incra ruler, you know, any type of ruler, but no measurements involved. So I'll show you the book, and what I realized as I was getting towards the end and I still had a bunch of pages, I think I picked up the wrong book. So I ended up having extra pages here that, you know, I had it up to here, so instead of having the pattern centered, I had all these extra pages. I did fold them as a 180 for the rest of them here, but that still left kind of like off center. So instead of just like, oh gosh, you know, like I'm gonna toss this because it's not right, I thought, well, I have these stickers which I actually got at the dollar store, and I'm going to apply these. They're already on a backing. So once I'm going to do a support kind of on the bottom, like stabilizing it. You've seen some of my videos where I have that on the bottom, but I just wanted to show you that you don't need to, you kind of work with what you have if that's the case. So look how nice that adds to it if you find yourself, you know, kind of figured out what you can do to save the book if that ever happens to you. So just an option. Let's see, how can I put this here? Maybe I'll do it this way. So again, this I would add on here after you stabilize the book on the bottom. This might be a little too big. Maybe I'll go this way. Because if you do it beforehand, you know, you might move this differently, so the pages would be open more. Move this up just a little bit. There we go. So just an option, something to do with those extra pages. Gives you an idea, you know, another option. But the main focus of this video was showing you how to do this graph pattern in a book. And obviously it looks the same as if you use the ruler, but it is easier and you can get a lot more detail if you're using the graph pattern versus the ruler, because you don't need to make sure that you have a ruler that measures 1/2 millimeter. You just go by the markings on these patterns. If you have any questions, please comment below. Please feel free to post your projects in my Facebook group using graph patterns. I will post this pattern in my Facebook group. It'll be a free pattern, so I'll post that in the files there. Join my Facebook group and you know, you can get the pattern there. It will be for the 280 pages, which means you won't have this extra area here, because my book was about 310 pages. So I got the wrong book, as I mentioned. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next project.